Greetings, friends. It's been a while, again, but I think things are well enough on track elsewhere that work can resume on this channel. For those who want a general channel update, I've got one of those at the end of this video, but I want to dive right into the topic of the day first, which may be a bit more of a general one than I've covered in quite some time. This is Little Ocupa Games. I'm Patrick. Welcome back to the shop. As many of you know, my background is in gaming media. Long before this channel was so much as an idea, I kicked around in the GameSpot community team, the long-defunct Game Addicts Network, Pro Gamer Magazine, and the place where any of you who knew me before I started this channel probably know me from, Smashpad and its long history of previous brands like Inside Gamer Online, Amped News, and Gamer 2.0. In fact, the only iteration of Smashpad I was never involved in was its first, Gaming Nation, which largely happened during my Game Addicts years. Now at this time I was already doing op-ed stuff, but I had also developed a reputation as a steady hand on the reviews side of things, and especially prolific to that end during system launches. In that context, I've been asked a few times over the years if I'd ever consider going back to writing reviews. And while I'll tell you that genuine efforts have been made, I've not been able to bring myself to actually complete one. This is going to require a lot of backstory, though. As I mentioned a moment ago, I was on the GameSpot community team off and on over the course of 6 years, from 2000 to 2006, and I remained a part of said community even after I moved away from the management thereof. This is noteworthy because in 2007 I was there to witness firsthand something that completely, eventually, killed any confidence I had in game reviews as a worthwhile practice, to the point that my heart really hasn't been in any attempt to get back to it in years. Today, Kane and Lynch is an almost entirely forgotten IP in gaming, but in 2007, Kane and Lynch Dead Men was IDOS's major entry into the 7th gen AAA space. Combine this with the fact that the protagonists, if you could even call them that, were very much a product of the time and place, and as you might expect, this meant the advertising blitz was absolutely insufferable. Nowhere was this ad blitz more prevalent than at GameSpot, which was absolutely plastered with Kane and Lynch banners and all other manner of promotions supporting the game. It was clear that GameSpot was the focal point of IDOS's advertising strategy. The review dropped, then editor Jeff Gerstmann handed down a score of 6 out of 10 and was promptly fired. But what exactly had happened? In short, the head of advertising had gained control over the editorial branch, violating what was very much a church and state level of necessary separation, and part of the marketing deal with IDOS included the presumption that the game would receive a favorable review. The review went up, Gerstmann said what was on his mind, and was shown the door for not delivering the fluff piece IDOS had bought and paid for. The abrupt departure of Gerstmann, who was a highly respected GameSpot mainstay from way back, made shockwaves throughout the gaming media at the time. Other outlets reported on it, Penny Arcade covered it, the GameSpot forums themselves were made nigh unusable because they were crowded with threads debating and expressing outrage over the firing, until admins were able to wrangle everything and funnel all of the discourse into a single thread. The most lasting consequence of this moment in time was the rise of Giant Bomb, initially formed by Gerstmann and others who left GameSpot in solidarity with him over his termination. You know what never came of it, though? A broader cultural conversation about the expectations we have of the gaming media. Some sites made token gestures, like disclosing how they obtained the games they reviewed, as if that was somehow a solution to concerns about the kind of egregious marketing overreach that caused what had happened to Gerstmann. There was never an actual reckoning. We, the gaming community and press alike, just kind of awkwardly shrugged our shoulders and pressed on, leaving the whole sordid mess to just hang over us, pretending it wasn't there at all. This is, incidentally, one of the many reasons I could never take Gamergate seriously. Even if their motives could be taken in good faith, and they can't, it's just weird that they started a whole movement trying to, quote-unquote, fix a gaming media that had already been rotting from the core for 7 years, over something significantly less egregious than what should have actually been its inflection point. If there was always this innate deep-seated passion for ethics in game journalism, then where was that energy in 2007? Now, for a time, I was just as guilty as everyone else. I kept my wheels spinning, kept going through the motions, because at the end of the day I still wanted to do that for a living, and outlets like Kotaku, Joystick, and Destructoid had yet to come along and establish a form of gaming media that was geared more toward the op-ed style of content than traditional news, reviews, and previews. Over time, though, that grates on you. I also found my desire fading to serve an audience that was still willing to put its trust in a gaming media that had swept so much under the rug in order to move on as conveniently as possible. It was about 7 or 8 years ago that the bottom finally fell out, and I just couldn't find the motivation to sit down with the intentions of writing out a game review anymore. I'll admit, there have been times I've wanted to give it another shot. At one point, I wanted to introduce retro reviews to Smashpad in a smaller review crew type of format reminiscent of the EGM reviews that I grew up reading. I also had something similar in mind when I bought littleakibagames.com a while back. Even then, it would be more of a personal indulgence, a vehicle to move forward with what I originally wanted to do with my life, rather than an effort to actually try and fix everything that's been left to fester in the gaming media space for nearly 2 decades. I can't fix it. I don't think anyone is ready to take on the task of doing what would actually be required to truly fix it. I bring all of this up now for a couple of reasons. First, the Switch 2 launch, for better or worse, is right around the corner, and my reputation in the gaming media is inextricably tied to being a workhorse getting these launch lineups reviewed wherever I happen to write at any given time. As such, I've had people asking me if I'll be back doing this for the Switch 2. Truthfully, I do not see it happening. It would be very difficult to get in the right headspace for it, keeping in mind everything I've just said about how I look at the current environment. Also, I've had some conversations away from the channel recently that have left me feeling genuinely nostalgic for those days of participating in the gaming media to a more traditional effect, largely stemming from the revival of Game Informer out from under GameStop ownership. I genuinely miss that kind of work. I miss feeling the motivation to do that kind of work. I wish things would change in such a way that I could feel like engaging in it again, but I don't think it would be realistic to expect what it would take to actually happen. Open conversation between parties in good faith, immediately and permanently kicking anyone out of the discussion who introduces any degree of vitriol, until an actual viable solution is arrived at for the broader gaming media to restore its credibility. That would be exceedingly difficult 18 years into the post-Kane and Lynch status quo. So maybe more of a personal note than my usual content, but it's really just something I felt the need to talk about at the moment. Before I sign off for today, I just want to take a couple minutes to bring you up to speed on channel stuff. You see, I've mentioned recently that I've been working on building another brand from the ground up in order to allow me to turn more of what I do into content and not feel lazy when I'm doing any gaming that isn't directly leading to stuff for this channel. That's just a thing I have to do to satisfy my OCD before I can press forward. But to be completely honest with you, it's not the only thing that has been holding up my full return to this channel. While I'm on the subject of the other brand though, since some of you have asked, it's not related to Little Akiba Games in any way, and I'm specifically going to be entering a space that leans on a greater degree of anonymity than other aspects of YouTube or Twitch, largely as a courtesy to anyone I might collaborate with on that brand who depends on that anonymity more than I do. When I loop you all in on what I'm working on, and I will loop you all in, I'm going to be careful to do it in such a way that I'll be able to keep the two brands in completely separate boxes from that point forward. It will be a one-time acknowledgement, and then never the twain shall meet. Finally, I am a compulsive creator in the sense that I actually feel like I'm going to pop if I'm not constantly creating something. I think I've talked about that before. This has been both a blessing and a curse because it allowed me to relaunch the channel a year and a half ago with 5 videos loaded up and ready to go. But also is responsible for me being maybe the worst content planner on all of YouTube. Too many times I've sat here knowing that I have strong opinions about this matter or that, and then tell you straight up in one of my videos that it's something I'll eventually get to at one point or another. You've probably seen it yourself if you've been here for a while. I do a lot of foreshadowing here, and not all of it has resulted in content. In my own defense, my track record hasn't necessarily been outright god-awful on that front, but it hasn't been that great either. And I'm just going to be upfront with you, in the time since this prolonged hiatus began, 2 videos that I had planned on making for a very long time have died on the vine. Fully recorded, never to see the light of day. Not because I no longer have those strong opinions on those topics, but because I wasn't satisfied with the end result, and I think trying to force them along and revisit them from another angle held up a lot of other things I could be talking about instead. I'm sorry for that, and I'll try to be careful with that kind of thing moving forward. If you catch me doing it, by all means, reel me in down in the comments. I could certainly use it. That's all for now. If you like this video, then please be sure to like, comment, share, and especially subscribe. Click the notification bell with the all option to know right away when the next video goes up. And this is something you should honestly be doing with all of your favorite channels, whether or not mine is one of them, to not leave their visibility to you in the hands of the algorithm. It's what you can do to create a better YouTube for all of us. With all of that out of the way, I hope to see you back here next time at Little Akiba Games.